Howdy, I'm Barry Silverberg, Director of the Center for Nonprofit Studies at Austin Community College, and this is Civil Society, a periodic podcast to provoke more thinking about issues affecting nonprofit effectiveness and success. My guest today is a good friend, Fayrouz Ben Yosef, Principal at Fayrouz Ben Yosef Consulting. She's a fundraising professional who's helped numerous organizations and their leadership to achieve great success. Fayrouz and I have talked a great deal about what it's like being a Jew or a Muslim in today's world. She's been very successful in her career, yet she still faces ignorance and prejudice from time to time. So Fayrouz, how do colleagues or clients react when they hear that, or they learn that you're a Muslim?
I would have to say that many times they're totally blown away. They don't know. And so their idea of what a Muslim is or looks like is very different than what they might have experienced with me. Again, preconceived notions, a lot of times things that just stem from what they see in the media or what they hear about, but usually it's quite a bit of surprise.
What do they expect to see?
I'm not really sure. Growing up I used to hear a lot of things like, well, you don't even have an accent. And it's just funny to me because no one ever thinks you could be culturally from a different place or religiously of a certain faith practice, right, and present sounding like you do. I actually was in Los Angeles this past weekend and someone said to me, where'd you grow up? Because boy, you sure sound like a Texan. And I think that's just by virtue of being here for 20 some years. So.
And you were born in Libya, correct?
I was, yes.
And how old were you when you came over?
The first time, about 18 months, came with my parents who were studying for their graduate degrees. And then we went back at the height of the Gaddafi regime in the late 70s, and I stayed for about 3 years. So from ages of 5 to 8, went to school there.
And I know you're really connected to Libya, emotionally and otherwise, and you created an organization called Libyan Hearts.
We did. So in the year of the Arab Spring, 2011, it was really quite horrifying to see what was happening all over North Africa and Syria and other parts of the Middle East. And my mother and father-in-law actually went to Tunisia and spent quite a bit of time there experiencing all the refugees that crossed the border from Libya into Tunisia. And I think, call it survivor's guilt or whatever, but when it came to be that we could tell the revolution was going to happen, there was a strong desire to want to be able to do something to help with all the post-war casualties. So we formed a nonprofit with your wonderful help, Barry, thank you, and took some doctors with us to go and perform surgeries, but also teach medical professionals there how to deal with the post-war trauma and then deal with the landmine situation.
Yeah, that's courageous to go back over there.
Thank you.
So how does being a Muslim affect your career, your outlook, your approach, the things you do, your value system?
Well, I think just like for any of us, when you have a faith or a spiritual practice, it's your guiding post, right? It's in Islam, the sort of primary tenet is how you treat others. We're all guided by certain beliefs and practices of everything from, being honest, being kind, being charitable. And those are at the core of what I was raised with. I was raised in a family where, while we straddled the sort of North Africa and United States kind of worlds, I also have relatives that live in Europe. And our family has always been connected to people of all faith practices. So even in Libya, my mom she was taught by Catholic nuns, learned to speak Italian, learned all the prayers. She also had neighbors and in fact her dad's business partner who were Jewish, and so on the night of the Sabbath when they couldn't do things, she would be there to help support them. So turn on the lights, do other things. So we just grew up in a very much more worldly kind of lens. And I would say that growing up though, there's sort of a caveat here of being from Libya. We grew up with don't tell people where you're from, for fear of people assuming that you espouse the same kinds of behavior or beliefs as...
Or that you're a terrorist.
Which is the furthest thing from the truth, right? So But regardless, I would say that it's an opportunity for education for us when people are sort of stunned or don't know. And I've had many people say, well, you're the first Libyan I've ever met, or I've never met anybody like that. Funny quick story is one time I was headed to Chicago for a Ronald McDonald House Global Charities conference that I was speaking at. And the driver that was sent to pick me up, we started chatting, and he said, where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm originally from North Africa. I kid you not, he stopped the car in the middle of the road, turned around and said, but you don't look African. I've never met an African that wasn't black. So just funny misconceptions, and the whole rest of the ride was all about how could I be from Africa.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, I actually had an experience in college where a roommate thought they'd never met a Jew before, and he thought I literally had horns.
Oh.
So, it was really, it's amazing how people are so confused or misunderstanding. There was a study done in 2017 by the Pew Center Research, and indicated that 50% of those surveyed had experienced at least one instance of prejudice, negative activity towards them in the past year. I was wondering if you've experienced that, not in the last year, but what kinds of things might you have experienced so that people would know that those are not good things to be doing?
Yeah, sort of one that really just pops up for me wasn't as much in the recent time, but during the Gulf War, I was a college student, and in between semesters, I would do temp work.
I didn't realize you were that young. Go ahead.
Thank you, Barry.
That's okay.
And one of the times I was working for a bank in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and not far from where I attended college at Dickinson College. And there was a group of executives speaking, and they said, we just need to bomb the hell out of all those Muslims and those Arabs and get rid of them all, and then we'd solve all our problems. And it almost in the same breath turned to me and said, Fairuz, where are you from again? And that's when I say, oh, Hawaii, because I don't want to go there. But in the same time, it was like a dagger through my heart of, oh my goodness, what misconceptions people have. Because if they knew that really the majority of people in that part of the world, or who are of the Muslim faith, they're like you and me. They want to raise their family, live in peace. They have no animosity toward other people of other faiths. In fact, my cousins, of which I have quite a few on my dad's side in Libya, they're enamored with and deeply interested in American culture. They're fascinated by it. They wish they could come here to study and have a life that they could build, because they don't have that.
Sad.
It is.
So when people, since you become an automatic representative of this larger entity of Islam and Ummah, is that the right word? The larger
Ummah.
The Ummah. Then what do you tell people? If I ask you, so what do you believe?
I believe in God. I believe in the prophets. I believe in a lot of our belief system is very much quite similar to Christian Judaic tradition as one of the three monotheistic faiths. So if you look at values and if you look at tenets, quite a few of those things are very similar. And really, like I said, Barry, at the beginning, I believe that the core of our humanity and how we'll be judged on the day of judgment is how do we treat one another? How do we even treat the animals and the insects and everything around us? Do you live with a pure heart? Because really, that's all we got is our actions at the end of the day. But really, the main sort of core of Islam is submission to the will of God. That you believe your actions matter, but that there's a higher power, kind of in charge, if you will. And that's it. And
well,
so
in my case, that's my wife. But
yes, good for Marcia. That's how it should be. But what I want to say is people really don't understand that people are just trying to go about living their life pretty simply. And that if you're curious or if you have concerns, go talk to someone or go read a legitimate source to find out what it's really about, because you'll be pretty surprised at the more commonalities versus the drastic differences.
Yeah, it's interesting when you eliminate differences as we have by just being people.
Right.
That same study I mentioned before indicated that 60% of the people who were surveyed felt that most Americans did not see Islam as part of the mainstream. And so there's a large educational effort that we need to really do to get people to see people as people.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a significant percent of the world's population believing in Islam, and how can you not? I mean, again, I think it's such a lack of education. How can you not give credibility to it? It's been around for quite a while. The sort of Islamic communities, if you will, and tradition have brought about quite a bit of science and literature and art, things that we've grown to appreciate.
Absolutely.
As human beings. So I think that, again, the other, we always fear the other, rather than
Absolutely.
If we teach our kids, let's get to know the other, right? And there's so many beautiful things that we'll find we have in common. That's really the way to live, in my opinion.
So I know you have a beautiful young daughter.
I do.
Yara. And she has to confront some of this as she goes through life. What do you tell her?
I tell her a lot of the things that we've been talking about. I will say that in the last year and a half, it was really troubling for me to watch her anxiety level, hearing rhetoric about Muslims and people from the Middle East, and she was gravely concerned about what that would mean for our family, you know, even though we're U.S. citizens, but still just the being outcast or being viewed as someone that's
as other.
Yeah, as other, and that is going to hurt people, which is the farthest thing from. We live our life in a way that is extremely charitable and engaged in our community. We give back a lot in different ways, and so I just tell her, look, Yara, you know, don't be afraid to say who you are, because Daddy and I were that way. We were actually told by our families, don't bring it up for fear. And I witnessed a lot of discrimination that happened to my mom and my dad growing up. So I still struggle with that. You know, there was a rally at the Texas Capitol during the time of the Arab Spring, and I'll never forget, it was at that time when the no-fly zone over Libya was being discussed in the news quite a bit. And there was someone who was sort of with the, what do you call that? The big horn, whatever it was. Megaphone, yes. And anybody here from Libya? And Malik and I, my husband, we kind of looked at each other, and I was like, do we say we're from Libya? And so slowly our little hands went up, you know, and these people from all walks of life were cheering, and they came and hugged us, and it was the bizarrest feeling in the world to like claim where you're from.
Yeah.
And I think something clicked for me that just said, okay, I'm done. I'm done not saying where I come from, because I love my family that's still there, and I love the cultural heritage that we have. Yes, I am an American, but I can be both, right?
Absolutely.
So our hope and our attempt, at least with Yara, is to show her that, and we've been really blessed to have a community of people that, despite the negativity, have rallied around us and have been extremely supportive, and say things like, you know, we stand with you. You don't have anything to worry about. So that's really heartwarming.
So you're a fundraiser. You've raised God knows how much money, more than I can count at least. So how does being Muslim, what's the philosophy of tzedakah in Islam, how does that relate to what you do?
Yeah, it's really pretty pivotal. My team and I at FBC, and that's the little acronym, Fairuz Ben Youssef Consulting, we this year came up with some core values, and one of them is living in philanthropy, because as part of the pillars of Islam, the 5 pillars, one of them is the sadaqah and the zakat, which is almsgiving. So it's important as you are blessed and as you have the ability to give back and to help those in need. So we've always done that, you know, personally at Ramadan. It's certainly a part of the tradition at the end of Ramadan to do that, but we do it all year round. And we've always taught Yara, even as a little one, you get a new toy, you give away at least 1, maybe 2 toys, kind of thing, right? So when you think about it,
that's tough for a kid.
very tough. But you know, I think it's, again, how do how do you raise them? And if you, kids are really smart, you know this with the brilliant children that you have, Barry. If you explain things to them, they get it and they see the value in it, right? So when it comes to our work, and for me with my business, it's just a natural part of, I can't go and talk to people about being philanthropic and doing good by investing charitably if I'm not doing that, right? Well, we always say you don't have the moral authority to ask others to give if you can't yourself do that. And I don't mean you have to be a multimillionaire, but find the things that you're passionate about and give, give to the degree that you can. So we're really proud of the fact that that's part of the fabric of what we do. And I do feel like I'm really quite fortunate, and I would use that word blessed again, to be in a position with my work to not only teach this, consult and strategize with people, but to do it. And that means a lot.
Yep. So what would you want the people, the one person who's listening to this, okay?
The one.
The one. What would you like that person to specifically know about Fairuz Ben Yosef, who, aside from being the fundraiser, you're a community leader in your own right. You've headed agencies in terms of being the president of them. You've been very involved. So what is it that you'd like viewers to hear?
Probably at the core of it are a few things, I would say. One is, don't judge a book by its cover, right? And so it's easy to do that. I have a name that's not a typical name. And yes, it's been butchered many a ways, but I've just grown to be patient with that. And I think as part of not judging a book by its cover comes also acceptance and understanding, and take time to get to know people. If I put my hand out and I say, hi, I'm Fairuz, please don't say, hi, Faye. That's just one of those cultural sensitivities. Try to get to know the name of the person. And that at the end of the day, I'm like any other person in the community who loves my community. Our family wants to stay here a long time and continue to do good. But especially as someone who is a Muslim, and I don't go out and preach that, because I think that just like my friends aren't necessarily saying, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm Jewish, or hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm a Christian or Buddhist.
Right, there's no...
It's all about how are we treating each other? Are we finding the commonalities? Are we taking time to really listen and get to know one another and build the bridges, as they say? I know that term might be overused, but just today or yesterday, my husband, Malik, was bringing together leaders in the soccer and nonprofit community to try to connect them in a way where they would have never had an opportunity to do.
Interesting.
And so these really interesting collaborations are now forming and bubbling up that probably, again, wouldn't have happened, but it just takes time sometimes to sit back and say, it would be great to connect as this person and that person, because they're all doing good work. They could benefit from knowing each other and collaborating. And so
absolutely.
Those are kind of some of the nuggets I think that I would share with that one person.
Yeah. Well, maybe we're now up to two with your advocacy of the program. We may be up to two.
Who knows?
Who knows? So one of the, again, I read this report, so now I'm an expert. But one of the things that's highlighted in the report is a significant differential between how Muslim men and Muslim women see life in America. Muslim women tend to see more negatives than Muslim men in this study. Okay, does that correlate with your experience at all?
And I wonder if in the study it has anything to do with women who wear the hijab, because I could see that very easily. I would beckon to think that if I did, I don't know that people would, this sounds terrible, but just what I've seen with some members of our family and how people think, because again, they see that and they automatically think something so drastically off kilter here. So for women who are Muslim that wear the hijab, I could see that they may have encountered quite a bit of negativity. Men, they can mainstream a whole lot more easily. So for them, it may be very different. So I can't say that for me I've had that experience. In fact, I would say my husband gets a whole lot more racially profiled than I do. He's darker in his skin tone, you know, dark hair, dark eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are always trying to figure out where I'm from. It's quite comical, actually. I've been everything from Venezuelan to Mexican to Swedish. So
Swedish.
I have been, yes.
Without the blonde hair?
No, apparently there's a whole cultural group of Swedes that have olive skin and dark hair and dark eyes.
Now that's something we need to explore here on Civil Society.
I'll try to find you one.
Please, please. Well, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
Please visit our website at nonprofitaustin.org/civil society to read more about Muslims in America and to look at some strategies that others have devised to help reduce prejudice and ignorance by sharing what you learn with others. And please do share your comments about today's podcast. This is Barry Silverberg with Civil Society, a Center for Nonprofit Studies podcast in collaboration with ACCTV. Thank you for joining us today.